Thanks for joining us for the Savvy Ladies Wednesday Wisdom webinar. I'm Maggie Montemuro, and I'm the Marketing Coordinator at Savvy Ladies. I'd like to remind everyone that if at any point you have any questions during the webinar, you can type them into the chat box. If you're joining us by phone, please email your question to info@savvyladies.org. Today's presenter is Lance Drucker, President and CEO of Drucker Wealth Management. Lance is a multi-year winner of the Women's Choice Award for Financial Advisors and the 5-Star Wealth Manager Award. Lance is also the best-selling author of How to Avoid Bag Lady Syndrome, A Strong Woman's Guide to Financial Peace of Mind. Lance has been featured in CBS News, The Wall Street Journal, Forbes, USA Today, and the New York Post. Thank you for being here today, Lance, and I'll hand it over to you now.
Excellent, thank you. Welcome, everyone. It's my first webinar, so it's a little weird for me to be doing a presentation to people I can't see. I see your names are on my screen. And for those of you who are on the phone and don't get to see my smiling face, we have the picture, pretty much what I look like without the beard. I found most webinars and conferences that I've attended actually cause me to lose brain cells. I think most of them make us a little stupider. So hopefully I can give you one or two ideas during the next, I think they said about 3 hours. Relax, it's 20 minutes. And we're going to take it from there. So, you know, this quick, for those of you who can't see, it's going to be a problem. It says I retire on Friday and I haven't saved a dime. Here's your chance to become a legend. I get clients who come to me who say, Lance, I'm retiring in 2 years. I have about $10,000 put aside. How am I going to do it? And panic mode is not really the best frame to be working in. So everything we do, everything in planning is start now. It doesn't matter how deep you are in the process. The fundamental question when people come to me, they bring their account statements and they say, Lance, are these okay? But what they're really asking is the world ending? Am I going to be okay? You know, it's a scary time right now. Volatility is on the increase. What should I be doing with my investments? Which is not really the question. The bigger question is looking at your whole picture, and we're going to talk more about that. You know, we did an analysis for everyone who's on the phone and on the webinar, and according to our latest figures, if you retired today, you could live very, very comfortably until about 2 o'clock tomorrow. Now, if you're smiling and laughing to yourself, this is good. It shows you have a sense of humor. But for a lot of people, that is the uncomfortable truth. Now, this next slide is basically, no matter what I say, you can't sue me. I don't know your situation, so this is kind of a CYA slide that we have to put up for legal reasons. Moving on. Warren Buffett, he's the Oracle of Omaha. I own Berkshire Hathaway stock. We own it in our portfolios. But one of the big reasons, not only is it a great company, but in his annual report, he writes an annual shareholder letter, which is very pithy. And one of the things that he said this year, and he said most MBA students, most investment bankers, most advisors don't really understand the difference between volatility and risk. So right now, the markets are very volatile. It's like watching a basketball game. It really only matters the last 5 minutes, what happens as opposed to the whole game. And what happens is our behavior is what makes the market risky. Because some of you who are currently invested, you got your August statement and it was down. And your heart started beating fast. And then you're going to get your September statement. It's going to be down again. And now you're starting to say, should I get out? Should I move my 401k cash? So the question that you need to ask is, what's the difference between a temporary decline versus a permanent loss? And that fundamental difference is, do you get out when it's down? It's impossible to time the market with any type of consistency, and we'll show you that in a little bit. A little bit about me, your presenter. I'm 52 years old. I have 2 kids, 2 dogs, and 1 wife. Not necessarily in that order, but that's pretty much the way that is. My dad started the firm in 1959. He passed away a few years ago. I've been doing this now for over 30 years. I have a certificate from the Wharton School of Business. I'm a chartered financial consultant, chartered life underwriter, and as they said earlier, I'm a multiple-year winner of the 5-Star Wealth Manager and Women's Choice Award, which is really the most important because that's the one that clients and peers. So I have a little bit of background on what it is we're talking about. So about 4 years ago, a particular client said, Lance, why don't you write a book? Because all my clients were asking me these questions over and over, and they said, isn't this written down somewhere? Yeah. I'm sorry, we had a little technical thing. There you go. So they said, isn't this written down somewhere? Which is why we wrote the book. And we're going to give you an opportunity towards the end of this webinar so that you can read said book and listen more to my written wisdom. So this is Debbie D. In 1987, I was a couple of years into the business, and this very attractive at that time, she was about 42, 43 years old. She was a very successful executive in the fashion industry. And she'd been referred to me. And when she came in, quite frankly, she had way more, she made more money, had more money. I really didn't know what to do with her. So we're talking, and I just threw out a question. And I said, Debbie, why are you here? She says, you want to know the truth? I said, that would be great. She said, I'm terrified of being the best dressed bag lady in Manhattan. And at the time, I'm 23 years old. I didn't really grasp it. And then, but what I started to do is every meeting I had after, I'd ask everybody, why are you here? And particularly from women, I kept hearing, maybe not exactly that. I heard I'm terrified of losing my independence. I'm worried about outliving my money. But this actually, best dressed bag lady came up more than I could have imagined. And hence the title of our book and why 70% of our clientele at this point is female. So the realities are, number one, women live longer and typically get paid less, which is therefore making it more difficult to accumulate enough money to fund their future. When they did a study, USA Today, 33% of women felt they were, didn't feel, or 33% felt they were on track, which means 67% felt they weren't on track. 80% of the women that they sampled felt unprepared for retirement. Why is this? For most of them, they didn't have a plan. You know, they accumulated some things, but there was no particular plan. And that's probably the most important thing, is step one, is not putting your money in investments, but developing a strategy or a plan. I'll talk more about that. And what they further found, was that women who work with an advisor are more than twice as likely to feel they're on track. And the reason they felt that, if no other reason, their advisor was saying, don't worry, you're on track. But typically, the good advisors out there will actually create a written plan for you so that you can see, and then every year, it's got to get updated. You know, overconfidence. The reason so many of our clientele are female is there are three things that most men feel we don't need help with. And as a man, I can say this. Number one, directions. We can get lost on our own. If Moses had listened to Mrs. Moses, wouldn't have been 40 years in the desert. Secondly, we don't need help in the bedroom. We know exactly what to do. I hope many of you are laughing about that. And third, we don't need help when it comes to money. Men, we're just gifted with this extra gene. And the way men are able to make $1 million is they start with 5 million and then proceed to screw it up. You see, women are much more likely to say, I don't know, I need help, I'm confused. And it has nothing to do with your educational level. It has to do with the fact it is confusing. We understand that, and which is why, again, 70% of my clientele is in fact female. So does your money keep you tossing and turning? I'm actually going to go through each chapter in my book. And the problem is we focus so much time on, you know, there's things that matter and things we can control. And the convergence of those two circles is what we should focus on. So on the next slide, you see the things we have total control over financially are how much we save and how much we spend. We also have control to a point on how much risk we're willing to take in our portfolio. That's not what we spend the most of our time thinking about, though. What we spend most of our time thinking about is the market and taxes and things like that. We can't control the market. No matter what you do this morning or tomorrow morning, the market's going to do what it does. But that's the part that we spend so much time focusing. And if we could turn that around and just focus on what we can deal with and can make a difference, it will have the capacity to change everything. So who's the boogeyman? Under your bed. What keeps you up at night? So this is just a partial list, and you tell me if they sound familiar. I'm terrified that I'll outlive my money and become a bag lady. I get these statements every month, and I can't even figure out what the heck I own. I know. My grandparents lived through it, and I'm going to live through it, another Great Depression. And I'm terrified of making a bad decision. I'm terrified of losing my independence. That's really important. I've accumulated a lot of stuff, but I don't have really a plan. How do I turn that stuff into an income stream? And that was the last one. So these are the financial fears. Now, your biggest mistake is not what you would think. It's not you invested in bad things. It's not the fees you're paying to the advisor. It's not the taxes you're paying. These are bad things in some cases, but it's not the reason. And by the way, it's not your idiot brother-in-law's recommendations. Your biggest financial mistake is actually you and your behavior. Now, on this next slide, for those of you who are calling in, this shows 20-year annualized returns by asset classes, starting in 93 to 2012. And quite frankly, it doesn't matter if it was 2012, 10, 14, it doesn't matter. 20-year return on real estate investment trusts, REITs, about 11.2% a year. On gold, 8.4, S&P, 8.2, oil, 8.1, international investing, 6.5, bonds, 6.3. And by the way, that was the last 20 years. Has nothing to do with the next 20 years. But that's not my point. Here's my point. The average investor has averaged 2.3% return. So the other investments, if you had a little bit in each of them, about 8%, 6 to 8% return over the last 20 years. But the average investor has only averaged 2.3. Why? Here's the reason. Your biggest mistake is your behavior. Because as soon as the market goes down, as soon as there's volatility, you tend to take action. You say, I got to do something, and you sell. And you've made a temporary decline a permanent loss. And everything we're about here is if we have a strategy in place, if we have a plan, we should never be reacting to what's happening because we want to be proactive. Man plans and God laughs. They say a budget is a mathematical confirmation of what you already know, but it's the starting point, and that's why we focus on a plan. Why do professional athletes? Every professional athlete has a coach. Why? I mean, these are typically well-schooled professional men and female and male athletes at the top of their game, but they have a coach because they realize when you're paying somebody who has more knowledge and expertise than you, that their results tend to improve dramatically. Now, quite frankly, what I do is not rocket science. We're not putting a man on the moon here. We're not. But unless you have the time, the knowledge, or the inclination, does it make sense to have somebody giving you a little hint? And what was really interesting to me, they did a study, and what they found was out of 100% what people are looking for, a strategy, a plan, a blueprint, or a solution, half of all women interviewed were looking for a strategy, something that gets them from where they are to where they want to end up. It's not just a solution, buy this investment, put your money here. And it wasn't just doing a plan, but it was a holistic, all-encompassing. That's what we do. That's why athletes hire a coach. They have a strategy to help them get the ultimate goal. 97% of people in America will not achieve financial independence in their lifetime. Now, 43% of all statistics are made up on the spot. So keep that in mind, but that happens to be a true one. And our definition of financial independence is having enough money put aside so that if you didn't touch the principal, you could live off the earnings. So one of the things that we do for our clients is we actually provide them, and we didn't design it, we just have brought it in for our clients. It's your own digital dashboard for you, encrypted, better than the Pentagon, or right up there, that allows you to take your entire financial universe, your bank account, your credit card, your American Express, your 401k, your investments, and put it all in this encrypted site. Because the first step is you got to know what you have. And doing this gives us the opportunity to help you develop the strategy with a plan, maximizing your investments, your retirement accounts, to help you get to that end game, whatever your particular end game is. This next slide is fascinating to me, and I've seen it 1,000 times, and it's from our friends at JP Morgan. And what it shows is over a 20-year period, from 93 to the end of 2013, $10,000 invested in the S&P 500, which is an unmanaged index. Not recommending it, it's good, it's bad, doesn't matter. If you stayed fully invested from December 31st of 93 through December 31st of 2013, 20 years, your fully invested return averaged a 9.22% return, over 9%. If you missed the best 10 days out of 20 years, your return went to 5.4. The best 20 days went to 3%. Best 30 days, you were even. Best 40 days, you actually lost money. So my takeaway is it's impossible to time the market with any type of consistency, which means have a plan, have a strategy, stay the course. Financial planning doesn't equal investment planning. So one of the things that we do for all of our clients is the first step is we do a plan, which takes into account their goals, their assets, and their budget. And it puts in a really simple one-page picture. Are you saving enough to hit your goals? And if you're not, what do we need to change? I'm going to speed through this because I'm getting the hurry up. How much time we have? 14 minutes. Excellent. So everything we do is based on something we call the 4 cornerstones of financial success. So the first cornerstone is building wealth. Building wealth does not mean just investing. It means, do I have a plan for how I'm going to build this wealth? The second part is protecting wealth. Protecting wealth means 2 things. One, what happens if I get sick? Do I have health insurance, disability insurance, long-term care insurance? It also means what happens the next time the market craters, if it's happening right now or in a year from now. Do I have a bear market? Do I have any vehicles in my portfolio that provide guarantees? Next, we talk about distributing wealth. So for those of us who are getting near or at retirement age, you've built up hopefully a chest, a war chest of money, a kitty, if you will. Well, how do we turn that savings into a paycheck? And that's tough for people to understand. But we measure people's wealth not just by how much they have, but how much income we can generate for them during retirement. And then ultimately, you're going to die. How do we get your assets to your family, your kids, your spouse, your charity in the most cost-effective, tax-efficient manner? So this is our 4 cornerstones that every client who comes in to see us, this is what we're going to focus on, all 4, not just one. Different priorities at different times, however. So we, in conjunction with Professor Wharton, I'd like to say we borrowed it, we stole the idea, but we actually did work with a professor at the Wharton School who helped us come up with this, what we call our 4-bucket approach to purposeful investing. Most of us do mental accounting. We get a paycheck. Some of it's going for bills, some of it's going for vacation, some of it's going to pay off debt, some of it's going to savings. But when it comes to the assets, once they're there, what we tend to do is lump them into one giant bucket and hope it grows. So what we realize is there's really 4 buckets of money. The first bucket is our safe, liquid, let me sleep at night, defensive account, our cushion, if you will. 3 to 6 months, 6 to 9 months of expenses. Our second bucket is our income bucket. It's meant to generate a paycheck, either now or at some time in the near future. Our third bucket is absolute return or hedged, meaning if the world does come to an end, do we have any part of our portfolio that won't go down as much or in fact may actually go up? And then our fourth bucket is our accumulation or growth bucket. This is the one that over time will give us the greatest rate of return, probably have the most money, but it will also have the most volatility. And as our friend Warren Buffett said, volatility just means up and down. Risk is, will I have more money in my pot at the end of the time than less?
Lance, I just wanted to jump in and say you don't have to worry so much about the timing. You don't have to rush through it. So take your time with the content.
Well, first off, I speak quickly for 2 reasons. A, I'm from New York. And B, there is a lot of information. Typically, we do like an hour, hour and a half. So,
Right.
but no problem. We're on target here. We're on target.
Great.
Living in retirement. So, you know you're ready to retire when you think getting lucky means finding your car in a parking lot. Quite frankly, I was just on a trip and we had parked our car at Newark Airport. And I took a picture, on my phone because I'm a smart guy, and it said B3. But apparently 100 cars in the row were in B3. So I wasn't that smart. So I did find the car and I did consider it getting lucky. But my question is, or what this slide really means is, for living your retirement, what's your goal? Is your goal to leave more money at the end for your heirs or charity? Is your goal to leave exactly what's there, just live on the interest? Or is your goal to die with $1.50? And by the way, that's okay. I give you permission to say, I want my American Express card to be maxed out and I want the check to bounce after I die. That's okay. But it's part of the plan. What are we looking to accomplish? And that's how you actually know how you can live. Too many of my clients who are retired are terrified about outliving their money. So the most important thing I tell them is, it's okay. I ask all my clients who are retired, who can afford it, they're going on a trip. Where do you sit on the plane? I sit anywhere on the plane. I said, yeah, we need you sitting in the front. They say, Lance, do you know how much it costs in the front? I said, I do. I said, I'm your advisor. I'm telling you, it's okay. Go first class. It'll change your life. That's the most psychic income I can get, is when I can tell a client, go first class, and they do, and they call me and say, Lance, it was fabulous. College savers. So for those of you who are saving for your kids' college, we don't have enough time to go through that, but here's what I need you to keep in mind. You can borrow money for college, and that's a huge problem in and of itself, but you can't borrow money for retirement. So for those of you wonderful parents who are taking every dollar you have and trying to put it towards your kids' 529, a custodial account, or college savings, so they won't have to come out with debt, that's great, but it's the old joke. One mother can take care of 10 kids, but 10 kids can't take care of one mother. You need to remember that. You got to take care of you. So, student debt is a crisis, and it's just going to get worse. It truly is. But you got to take care of yourself first. If you are, then I'm all about funding your 529, paying for it out of cash flow. That's all I'm going to say about that. I love apocalyptic books, apocalyptic movies. The Walking Dead, to me, is not so much a TV show as much as it is a documentary. They actually now have a spin-off, which I'm addicted to both. But when we wrote this chapter of the book, preparing for the zombies, whatever crisis comes next, it's always going to be something. The reason the market's bad right now is China. 2 years ago, China was the king of the world. 2 years ago, the problem was the pigs. Portugal, Italy, Ireland, Spain, Greece, they were going to default. Well, it didn't happen, really. Typically, 90% of the stuff, I'm old enough, and probably many of you are, to remember Y2K, right? 2000, clocks on the computer were going to roll over, was going to wipe out everything. Nothing happened. There's going to be a reason why the market goes down next. There always is, and there always will be. But fundamentally, the scariest words to me are, yeah, but this time it's different. No, it's not. And there are people who have lived through, people like me, people who are older, who have lived through all kinds of crises and debacles. And at the end of the day, the market consistently increases. Never bet against America. Doesn't matter the politics, doesn't matter who's in charge. But we do need to have a strategy or a plan in place for what does come next. This slide, for those of you who can see it, is a lot of stuff going on, but it actually rocks me. And what this shows is over a 34-year period, ending 2014, the S&P, which is the unmanaged index of 500 stocks, every single year, there is an amazing amount of volatility. And in fact, from the peak to the trough, which is pretty much what's happened this year, there's a 14.5% difference. Meaning from the high point of the year to the low point, almost a 15% loss every single year. But what's amazing is out of 34 years, and 26 of them, the market has actually ended up positive for the year. If there wasn't that drop, it would have been higher, but that's what happens. So this volatility is not something new. It's not something that just happened. It's normal. Right now, today, volatility for the last few years has been muted, and it's come back, which is what's creating some of this anxiety and angst. And that's why we spent some time talking about that. This picture, if you see it up on the slide, is my in-laws. And about 14 years ago, my father-in-law had a massive stroke. And this is just about the need for long-term care insurance, or at least planning for your health care. It's never going to happen to me. My family will care for me. Medicare will pay for it. These are all nice things, except most of the time it will happen to you. Your family won't be able to care for you, and Medicare typically doesn't pay for it. A little bit more than we can go into in this particular workshop, however. Warren Buffett, again, coming back to him. As you can see, I like Warren. He's a real smart guy. And 2 years ago, he wrote in his annual letter that when he died, his stock is going to the Gates Foundation, the charity, but whatever cash is left, and there will be a lot, it's going to go to his wife. And he's saying, he likes index funds, and particularly likes Vanguard. This is not a pitch for Vanguard or for index funds, but we do happen to like that approach as well. And for a lot of people, it's the easiest way to get started. But all this really comes down to, folks, is change. We don't like change. When was the last time you changed your route to work? When was the last time you changed your breakfast cereal? Change creates anxiety. Why am I going off on change? Because if there's something about your financial picture that you're not happy with now, you need to make a change. But that in and of itself creates its own level of anxiety. It's just like they told me 80 people signed up for this webinar. How many people are actually on? Quarter of that, half of that? Definitely at 80. I do a lot of public speaking. We have rooms that are registered, going to be overflow. Typically fill the room, but it's amazing between I committed to it to actually doing it. It's like joining a gym. How many of you, and you can raise your hands, I won't see it anyway, have joined the gym? You're raising your hand. How many of you actually go more than once a month? Hopefully more than a couple, but it's normal. Change. Couple of, how are we doing on time, by the way?
We're okay. We're okay on time.
Give me 5 minutes, 10 minutes?
10.
10 is okay.
10, good. Okay, moving along. So case studies. People seem to love these, case studies. So we had met a client been referred to us, Dr. Ann. She was worth $2.3 million. It's a lot of money. She had accounts, retirement, 401k, IRA, at hospitals throughout the Northeast. She had switched jobs a number of times for better positions. And her main thing was she didn't really know, she didn't look at her statement. She was way too busy. She had no idea if she could retire. So the very first thing, she came to us with a stack of her statements, unopened. She had no idea. She didn't want to deal with it. She said, take care of it. I said, how much do you need to retire? She says, I have no idea. I said, well, that's the first step. We helped her with a budget. We designed a plan. And then the last part of it was then consolidating and simplifying her life, giving her the access to this online aggregated website, which had all of her stuff. And at the push of a button, she could see how she was doing at any given time. I met John and Eileen, a couple, worth about $1.2 million. And they talked about they wanted to retire and this, but I felt there was something they weren't telling me. And we kept digging and digging. It turned out they had a special needs child. That, they had an advisor who worked at another institution who just kept wanting them to invest their money in a particular vehicle. It turned out they had 2 kids. One was a special needs kid. All they really cared about was making sure that both children were taken care of, and that the special needs kid child would be able to, live a life and have income, but it wouldn't screw up the Social Security. Once we figured out what the problem was, we were able to provide a solution, and now they can relax because it was taken care of. And then Sarah came to us. She was worth about $750,000, and she was a do-it-yourselfer. She had a Schwab Direct and managed and trade. But when she came in, she said, I have all this money. It's doing great, but I'm not able to generate income. I don't want to run out of money, and the way things are invested, I'm subject to the vagaries of the market. So by restructuring her portfolio, we were able to generate enough income that between the income and the Social Security, we showed her she would never outlive her money. And that's fundamentally, that's what we do here. So the 3 main pillars of investing. Have you ever tried to jump a car, a dead car? You got 2 sets of plugs, you got 2 sets of plugs. Typically, red goes to positive and black goes to negative, or is it the other way around? And typically, whenever I do it, sparks fly out. You think the engine's going to explode. So they came up with this really simple jumper cables. You plug in one, you plug in the other, push the button, car starts. Brilliant. I have one. My wife has one. My daughter, everybody has one. Because what are people looking for? We want it simple, we want it safe, and we want it to work. Well, that's conceptually, that's exactly what we want with our money. We want it simple, we want it safe, and we want it to work. So the question that you have to ask yourself is, the way you're doing things now, is that happening? So final thoughts, our last chapter is what happens next? What do you do from here? If you're still on this website, if we haven't made you stupider or fall asleep, where do you go from here? What do? Do you just go back to your desk or your apartment or whatever it is you're doing? Or do you take some action steps? Earlier in the call, one of the people from Savvy Ladies, which is an amazing organization, by the way, they said, Lance, you're going to talk about procrastination. So for those of you who can't see, it's a picture of a woman surrounded by stacks of papers. We all have good intentions. The 3 most popular New Year's resolutions. Number 1, I'm going to lose weight. Number 2, I'm going to stop smoking. Number 3, I'm going to save money. And what do we usually find come November? A bunch of fat, poor people smoking like a chimney. So this is what keeps us from moving forward. So what we wanted to do is a gift from us to you. And by the way, this to me represents the essence of what we do. It's a mouse with a helmet waiting to get its piece of cheese. We all want our piece of cheese. And there's that trap of risk and volatility that's there to smack us on the head. So what my goal is as an advisor is to offer the helmet. We can't take all the risk out, but we can help to mitigate or minimize it. Come back to that if we have a minute. So what we've done is we want everyone who's on this website, on this webinar and call, to receive a copy of our book. So there's this amazing website that it's an app that you can put on your phones, and it's called Kiwi Live, Kiwi Live, L-I-V-E, one word, .com. If you go to that, you put that in your search engine, go to kiwilive.com, and then you're going to enter your event keyword, which is Kiwi, K-I-W-I, dash BLS. And that will, you're going to input your name, your phone number, your email address, all that stuff that they make you do, and it's going to automatically download our book as a PDF, right? As an electronic book right to your computer, iPad, whatever you're using, phone. So that's our gift to you for sitting through my rantings. And some of you are still going to have questions. I hope you do, actually. Confusion is not necessarily a bad thing. So we're going to offer to everyone who's on this webinar a free phone consultation. Our phone number is up on the screen. It's 212-681-0460. 212-681-0460. And my email is lance@druckerwealth.com. Drucker Wealth is one word. We're on Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, LinkedIn, and our website is Drucker Wealth, D-R-U-C-K-E-R Wealth.com. And you can watch videos and learn all about us and answer any questions you may have. That concludes my active part. So what questions do you, I would imagine, ladies have? Feel free to hammer away.
Great, thanks, Lance. We did have some questions that came in, so I'll start with this first one, which is, what are my options for my existing 401k if I decide to leave my company?
Great question. So when you leave the job, you're given a great opportunity. A, you can leave the 401k. We don't recommend. In fact, there was just an article in a paper I was reading, I think it was a journal this morning, that when you're at the 401k, sometimes you're limited on your beneficiaries, or especially if you have a spouse, they have to sign off on it. When you roll it over into an IRA, and that's really the option, you can do a rollover IRA. There is no cost, tax, or penalty to do that. From there, at the job, you're limited to whatever investment options are in the 401k. When you roll it over, no taxable event, you have the entire universe of investment vehicles out there to manage your future retirement. The only thing you want to be real careful of is you don't want to take it as a distribution, because if you take it as a distribution, it is taxable. There is a 60-day rule, you can get it back in, but what you want to do is what's called a trustee to trustee transfer or IRA rollover. So typically for our clients, they get us the paperwork, we do a conference call with them and their 401k provider, we roll it over, and no tax, no penalty, no cost, and based on their goals and objectives, we'll determine the best way to invest it.
Okay, great, thanks. And another question, do you work with clients that don't live in the New York City metropolitan area?
Yeah, one of the amazing things that happened, after we wrote our book, was it got picked up by USA Today and Wall Street Journal and Forbes and about 200 different publications throughout the country. So we got a number of calls from clients literally all over the world, but definitely all over the United States, who said, "Hey, how do I hire you? It's like the book you were talking to me. How do we work with you?" So we set up just like this, a go-to-meeting. They saw me, I saw them. So the answer is yes. We have clients literally just about in every state in the country, throughout the world, but definitely in the United States. And with the advent of computers, and if you live in some place really cool that I'd want to visit, there's that as well.
Okay, great. And do you have time for one last question?
Sure do.
Okay. I have this idea that in addition to my 401k, which is on track, that I should set up a brokerage account and try to invest in the stock market on my own. Do you think this is a practical strategy or too risky?
I don't know. Depends what you're investing in. Do I think it makes sense to save more money than just your 401k? Not yet, but hell yeah. Save as much as you can. Nobody ever saved too much. If your question is, does that make sense? Yes. Does it make sense to invest on your own? Again, I don't know. I don't have enough information to answer that question. Like I said, plenty of people do, and there's nothing wrong with it. But the question you have to ask yourself is, do you have the time, the knowledge, or the inclination to to stay on track, to put together the portfolio, to stay with it in the bad times. If you do, sure. If not, then maybe you need help, be it me or whomever else.
Okay, great. Thanks. Well, we want to thank you again, Lance, for an excellent presentation, and thank you for the copy of your book. We know everyone will enjoy it. It's a great read. And I'm not sure if you wanted to go back to this other slide quickly that you had.
I think we pretty much covered everything. Okay, yeah, we'll take 2 seconds on
Okay.
that. So, this is a great slide that we use in all our presentations because, if I came to you 20 years ago, 30 years ago, and I said, I have this great new company that's just getting started, you have $10,000 to invest. And when you look at the people, this is the board of directors, some scary looking people. In fact, the guy in the top center looks like Charles Manson. So that's a little scary. But if you look at the little squirky guy in the bottom left, that's Bill Gates. And this is the first annual report from Microsoft. So just imagine if you were taking a chance. And that's really what this is about. It's taking a chance. It's taking advantage of opportunities sometimes when they present themselves. One of my favorite books is called Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill. And you say, how could I think and grow rich? How does that work? Well, you can't just think about it and make yourself rich. But what he meant was, when you open your mind to opportunities that sometimes are presented to you that other people may not see as an opportunity, if you're always thinking about this goal when it appears, maybe it's this webinar or other things that have happened in your life, you're one of those people who take advantage of it. So, when you've taken advantage of this, are you going to take advantage of this webinar? That's all I got. Thanks so much for listening, and onward and upward.
Great. Thank you so much, Lance. What a great message to end on. And thank you to everyone who joined us today. And just want to thank you again, Lance.
My pleasure. Thank you so much.
Thanks. Bye-bye.
Bye now.